Okay. The commencement drink. We get our LaCroix. Pure. It's the best flavor, the lack of flavor. Oh, yeah. It's pretty hot in my home right now. I don't know who's here or who's watching, but as with the beginning of every stream, we need to do a couple level checks, and I'm in a whole new place. I keep looking down because I have the iPad here, and it's gonna show me comments when they happen, right? Yeah. I also don't want to hear it. Where are you at, buttons? There we are. Okay, cool. You are backstage. Awesome. Yeah, if anybody would tell me if they're here, so that I can get started doing what I plan on doing, which is just talking about Modular and the Octatrack, or Modular and Elektron gear, but particularly Modular and the Octatrack, because I find, whoa, Twitch, log in, forget it. Hello, Gladstone Deluxe. Nice to meet you. Well, I guess I will just leave this here. I have this weird thing on the table, this the Boss Micro BR, which I bought a long time ago to record me playing guitar when I was like traveling. I've literally never used it once, but it's cool. Sure, it looks cool. I'll put it back over here. Yeah, like I said, it's super hot in here. Working on a live set right now with Elektron stuff and Modular. Is that what you're doing or what I'm doing? Because that's definitely what I'm doing right now. Because this will probably be on my YouTube channel later, so I'll just pretend like there's a bunch of people here hanging out with me, even though it's just me and Gladstone Deluxe. You're a great companion, Gladstone. What I have going on right now is the Modular going into inputs A and B on my Octatrack. Oh, there's a whole bunch of chat coming in. Cool. So I like to design these templates, right, for my Octatrack, and typically I'm using other Elektron boxes. Lurking in the back. Cool. But I own a lot of Modular gear. And often I find it sits just on the shelf. And it's like a monumentous amount of money went into buying my Modular. And I work at a modular shop, so I'm always gassing for new pieces of gear. And I've been really good lately, and I haven't been buying stuff. I've been chilling because I moved. And but I was like, more recently, I'm gonna play Basement State soon, and I want to use my Modular more. So I took my Metron and Volterra out, which is a very Elektron style sequencer. It's got like, with the Volterra combo, you can like hold down steps and turn an encoder and lock voltage, actually, or lock different notes, and it has like scales you can put in, yada yada. Very familiar for me, very easy for me because I do so much Elektron stuff. But I found it uninspiring. I go into, not that I don't love it, I'm uninspiring lately because I've been doing so much Elektron stuff, so I wanted something different. Forgive me, WMD, you know I love the Metron and Volterra. But I also love my nerd sequencer, and it just keeps getting updates constantly. And I've had it for a really long time, and it was my first sequencer that I bought for Modular. And when I first got it, you couldn't do half the stuff you can do on it now. Now it has built-in envelopes, built-in LFOs, built-in synthesizer. It has an FM synth. I'm not gonna like go into all that stuff on the stream here because that's like, it's just really hard, and I'm also not good enough at it to navigate. But it's really cool, and I found like there's a little bit of the workflow. It's a similar workflow to using this sequencer with the Octatrack as it is to using like the analog rhythm and analog 4 with the Octatrack, right? Because you don't have pattern mutes. Which you don't need because it's a tracker. You can just set it up that certain tracks aren't playing. But the way I like to write music, it becomes meticulous to build patterns that way. So I'd rather just sample 4 bars, fade over to that 4-bar sample like you would on DJ Looper, and then change things around. So yeah, nuts. Right now, what I'm playing with is Modular coming into inputs A and B. Hold on, before I go. I have this monitoring so I can hear myself. And I don't want to hear myself. Okay. Wow. That is just so much better. You guys can hear me good, yeah? If somebody could tell me that they got the levels right, I'm gonna play some music really quick. God, it's so much more comfortable to talk without an echo in my head. I'm gonna play some music really quick. If anybody who's in the chat could just tell me how well they can hear the music. Because I'm doing this over StreamYard, which streams it both to Twitch and to YouTube, I don't have like the really awesome sidechain ducking that you can do with your voice in the music. So if I press play on this and try and talk, this is probably going to overpower my voice pretty easily. So I'm going to have to try and do my chatting at different times that I play the music. So forgive me if that doesn't happen, but I'll try my best. And you could just warn me, and I can also just like turn the music down a little bit just to make sure. Level good without music. Cool. Here comes the music. Let's turn up some stuff that gets kind of loud. Now I'm chatting. Obviously, instantly I raise my voice because I'm trying to talk over the music, but I'm gonna try not to talk over it. Talk about this loud. To me, the music is at a very nice level. This would be the level that I would be actually. Hey Toby, what's up? This is a good level for me. Is it a good level for you? That's what I want to know. Look at this studio. Yeah, music needs to be a tad bit quieter. This is the kind of info I need. Ben St. John. Works for me. I think that's pretty good. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go back into the conversation. Let's talk about this setup. There's a struggle that I go through of sharing audio duty with Modular. When I use Modular, I find myself really wanting to just use the Modular, stay inside the box, because inside this box is like a billion boxes. And the Octatrack, the Octatrack is so modular that it can work with the Modular so well that I'm always using it. If it's not just being an effects mixer for something, it literally could just be receiving the audio. It's just always on the table, right? And but I usually leave the samples out of it when I'm doing something with the Modular. However, I'm trying to get these, like, make a more dynamic performance similar to the way I would perform with a Digitac and a Digitone and the Octatrack, or say like an Erica Synth bassline or some other device that has a stellar sequencer. Because it's like, for me, it's like the sequencer is a big part of it. And so I was like, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll take the stereo outs from a big mess of sounds, and I have some drum modules in here, And I have a bunch of synth modules. We have some analog voices, we have some digital voices, and then we have some filters and some cool effects. And plenty of modulation, all the modulation in the world that you could need. And I'm feeding that into the Octatrack into a through track, which is listening to inputs A and B, like I said, and then it's going into a neighbor track so that I could develop some more effects. Honestly, would like it to go into 2 neighbor tracks. I think that would actually be the most effective way to use it, but I've run out of tracks. I feel like I want to keep, it's going to have to stay this way, and I'm going to have to just be as clever as I can with the effects I get on these tracks. So on the incoming audio to the Octatrack, the effects I have are apparently a flanger. I don't remember having that. And a dark reverb, a filter, and a delay. So I have those 4 effects, and then I have the master track, which has a delay on it and a filter. And this delay is being used as the freeze delay, which I'm not actually using to perform with. I'm using the freeze delay to build other effects, like little loopers and stuff, like kind of like the Daft Punk effect. I have a version of it in here. You can't actually build that effect in this setup because of the lack of tracks, basically. So anyway, I'm gonna continue on. Everybody, just double check. Everybody can hear me all right? Everything's going good so far? I'll try and cool down with this tasty beverage. Yeah. Looks like everything's cool. All right. Okay. So what I have going on is audio coming into inputs A and B, like I said. And so what I have here is my kick drum, and I have a hi-hat, and here I have a snare track. Here I have a resampled track, and this resampled track functions differently based on what pattern I'm on. Usually with these mixer effects templates that I find myself building, I just use one pattern, and that pattern represents a part of the template, but I'm actually using the Octatrack in a more conventional, formal way, and I am writing the sequence with the modular. So it gets a little complex. So when I move from pattern 1, we'll call it pattern 1, to pattern 2, I actually have to change it here, and I have to change it here. And so that requires some setting up, and maybe I'll change, do some knob turns and what have you. And they're pretty basic. I already have it laid out, and I'll show you guys some music with it, and we'll see how it sounds. But one of the real benefits of using your modular instead of using like other groove boxes, is the effects that you can put into your modular synth are unbeatable. The Desmodus Versio as a reverb, like using it as just a beautiful reverb and not using it as like a crazy sound design tool, because that's what it can do, but it doesn't, for my kind of music, a beautiful reverb is more tuned to me. And gosh darn, does it sound so good. And you can't get that sound without using external effects. I mean, the sounds that Elektron makes, fantastic. They do a great job, but it would take a dedicated DSP to make the kind of sound that this makes. And I have, right now I have the qubit surface getting a lot of send to the reverb, and I have it set to pre, so you won't actually hear the qubit surface. You're just gonna hear the Desmodus Versio just doing its reverb thing. And I'll mute these drums so you can hear how beautiful this sounds. And so that's just the send of some plucks going on. You can see the pattern over here. And then if I bring in the surface, oh, what? So sick. So each one of the notes on the surface is switching full pan left, full pan right per note. And that's something the surface is actually doing. It's not me, which I find that so convenient, because it's a sound that I like. I love that pan sound. Pablo, you're welcome. I'm glad you're here. But yeah, it sounds so good. So I'm having a lot of fun using my modular with my Octatrack. I feel like I'm glad that I'm just using these two together and I'm not throwing in a bunch more machines like a rhythm and a 4 and a digitone and all that, because it gets overwhelming, and then I won't spend any time turning knobs, and that's my favorite part about making electronic music. So double press stop, mute all the audio. Sounds so good. I don't know. That's what I think. I think it sounds really good. So I'm gonna go back to the workflow thing. So what I have going on is I still have my resample track on track 7. So track 7 is set up to record 4 bars of incoming audio and also the audio on the Octatrack, which it has to do because these 3 tracks, as I said before, are doing the percussion. They're doing the main part of percussion, kick, snare, hi-hat, right? So if I want drum fills, they're happening here. If I want my techno hi-hats, they're happening here. They're not happening here. I'm doing more interesting sound design stuff over here and less percussion. Though I am using the Bacillus iteratus to do some percussive stuff, which we can hear like there. It sounds like this lo-fi drum track. Panned a bit to the left. And I have my Octatrack and its usual suspect of effects that I'm building. I'm rebuilding all the effects on the Octatrack for this project. And I'm going to upload this project onto my Patreon. So if anybody wants to like dig through it and mess with it and make it their own, go for it. It's all yours. I'm gonna hope to save some of this, maybe make like a video on it or something or whatever. I don't know. I just wanted to stream. I'm sitting at home by myself and just knowing that there's people out there just gives me a sense of security and a little blanket of joy. Hooked up a new KRK sub in my student. Every time you hit your desk, it sounds like somebody knocking on my door. That's funny. I wonder if it's me hitting this. It might be. I'm one of those cool cats that, yeah. I still do the wallet chain. I have since I was a teenager. I probably never will. The moment I take the wallet chain off, I lose my wallet. It's a fact. Every single time it happens. It's just the way it has to be from now on. Hello, yesterday I saw a tutorial of yours about the Octatrack and quantized loops. It was very high quality content. Keep it up. Oh, cool. Thanks. Appreciate that. I go back and I check out videos like that and I think like, oh, I could have done that better. Or there's a better workflow for it. Or I don't know. That was like, that evolved from the remixer concept. It's very similar to what I'm doing here. We might get into some sampling too a little bit later, but I'm gonna stay focused. Stay on this project here. All right, so I'm gonna try and perform this project a little bit. We can get an idea of like what's going on. So we're gonna start with our kick and this pad sound coming in from the qubit surface into Desmodus Versio. It sounds nice. Well, I turned the modular down. I should have turned the whole thing down. Let's turn it down here. Okay. So now if we want to transition to our next part, the most boring way we could do it would be just to unmute the hi-hats. Which doesn't sound bad. That's nothing wrong with that. It's just there has to be a more interesting way to get there. And so a lot of times I'll like to use a filter, right? A low pass. And that will bring in like another element, like maybe we'll start with this bass line coming up. This is the Doepfer mini synthesizer voice. This is an analog voice. Okay, so that was just a bit more interesting. It requires a lot more patience to move to that. So I actually don't even have anything on track 5. This is just muted for the third pattern. So now it's like, what do we do? So I'm going to sample this into the Octatrack. You can see it happening here. I have a, I like to make these a little bit tutorial-esque when I'm doing this kind of stuff. So I'm gonna go over stuff that a lot of people might already know. I just want to be clear so somebody tuning in who doesn't know how to use this stuff gets a little bit of a tutorial on the way. So the way I have things set up here is track 7 is a flex track. Flex tracks can be associated with an audio buffer where you can record audio onto. And by setting the level all the way to 127, I'm able to get unattenuated volume. So I get whatever we are hearing right now, I can record a 4-bar loop and you won't know the difference. So for instance, I can now fade over to this recorded version. I don't know, can you tell the difference? Probably can't, but I can do this now. Which is a whole nice jam in its own thing, right? I could just make an album of half-speed dance music. That would probably sound, that's actually a pretty good idea. All right, so go back to it. So part of the other workflow that I have going on, so I have my 4-bar loop going on track 7. I have the same buffer. So look at this. Oops, I didn't mean to double press that. Let's go in the audio editor. Okay, track 7, track 6, they show the same audio, but they are different tracks sharing the same audio buffer. So what that means is that I can create scenes or sequences on these tracks using the same incoming audio and rearrange it different per track. So for instance, I have 2 scenes happening on here that play with those. And let me tell you how this works. On scene 16, I mute every piece of audio that is being created in the live setting, right? Kick, snare, hi-hat, incoming audio gets muted. And the only thing you do here is recorded audio on track 7. So for instance, let's scoot it over to our recorded version. I could literally just mute everything, right? If you know the Octatrack, you know that this is muted. We should not be hearing that. We're not. We're hearing this, track 7. Now, I'll unmute these or give you, just to prove it. So the first scene is that resample track, and that allows you to do all sorts of things. For one, it gives you a moment to breathe. Have a drink of your delicious unflavored LaCroix. Delicious. It also allows you to change settings on your synthesizer or on your other box, or mute or unmute things at your own leisure. It lets you get ahead. And I was doing a lesson with a gentleman yesterday, and our discussion led us to this like conversation about you got to think ahead when you're performing this kind of music. It's the same thing with playing with a band. And I grew up playing guitar and singing in bands. That was my thing. And you have to think ahead when you're doing that. You have to think very ahead. You have to know the song very well, right? You're literally playing the music. It's not being sequenced for you. But that's kind of how I try and make this. I want to literally be playing the music and not necessarily have it always be sequenced for me. That I have at least there's moments where I'm taking over and I'm making these deliberate choices in the moment. And when you use something like a 4-bar looper, you have to think about this. You have 4 bars of loop time. So that's that already you have to know. You have to arm your recorder to record 4 bars of loop time. Then after the 4 bars play, you have to move over to the 4 bars of loop time. Okay, now you have that 4 bars, but you're at 8 bars now. So whatever change you were hoping to make, it's 8 bars away. So you got to think like that. You're thinking 8 bars ahead at the minimum. Or yeah, at the minimum. You're always thinking at least 8 bars ahead. And that's how I am when I'm doing this. I have to always be prepared to make a transition. If I take too long to set up my recording buffers and do all that kind of stuff, then the music gets stale a lot faster and it's not as dynamic as a performance. It's easy to make music go forever. It's hard to cover all your tracks and do an interesting performance in a shorter period of time. So if I can finish a song in under 7 minutes, that's like 2 patterns long, while I'm bringing elements in and out and in and out and doing these 4-bar loop segments, I'm doing a great job. Great job. If it's over 7 minutes, I'm unprepared. or I'm getting distracted by something, or I'm spending too much time on one part, and the music's probably getting a little stale. I'm gonna take a moment to look at these comments here. Tell me, Matt, can we push out a wave of likes? Lurking whilst working. That's what I'm talking about. Please do a run through of your scenes you love. Okay, well, I will, because I'm literally designing these as we speak. That's what I'm working on. So I'm designing scenes for this build, right? And if you're like me and you're into modular, you're doing about a zillion builds with your modular. So I spend about as much time like deciding what's going to go inside my rack. I probably spend more time deciding what goes into the rack than I do playing on it, which is frustrating. That's so frustrating for me. I need to like, well, it's also super fun. So who am I kidding? I love it, but it is frustrating. But so like I'm designing these scenes for this setup. When I do the remixer thing that I always do for like all of the stuff that I play, I'm like, I use the same effects every time. I just try and do different things with them if I can. I try and have the effects be done on the device. It's like when you buy yourself your first guitar amp and you have a guitar and you're like, all right, now it's time to go out and get some effects. What are you gonna buy? You're gonna buy a reverb. You're gonna buy a delay. If it's electronic music, you would get yourself something that lets you do high pass and low pass filter, maybe some band pass. So it's not that many effects that you need to have the basics to do whatever you need to get around in your music. I kind of think of effects with the Octatrack and with modular or with any electronic music in general as a way to bridge gaps. It's like I need to move to this island and to this island, and I can't get to these different places without these effects. I can't get to a place where the bass feels empty without the high pass filter, and I need to dial that in with my hand, which is really fun. And the Octatrack lets you do that. That's the life. Yeah, what's up, Richard? Richard's my boy. He's been having a hard time. Okay. So I'm gonna go a little further, and then I'm gonna talk about what's happening on track 6. So we have our little bass line going on here. I have this like macro designed using the 410 by WMD going into a mult, and so it's multiplying voltage out. So when I move one fader, it's changing the effect of several modules at once, and I can dial it with my hand. Most notably, it's bringing the balance in of the sub-bass square wave on the Dopefer module. And this is bringing in the sawtooth, which has a higher pitch. Right? Okay. So, little high pass. Take out the kick. Bringing in these other little percussion dealies here. Throw it into the Desmodus. Hello, EZBOT. Been a fan of your videos since you got the Octatrack. All right, cool. I'm a big fan of the Octatrack. Okay, so this sounds like this would be pretty cool to record. So I'll record four bars of this. You can see that right on here. You probably can't see it all that well. Wow, that's a bug. Interesting. But now it should be fine. Okay. Yeah, you probably can't see it super well. I'll probably have a clip of this that I'll put on YouTube that people can watch, and it'll be a higher quality video. But okay, so what's happening here? I just sampled 4 bars of this audio that we're hearing. So, like I said before, track 7 and track 6 are sharing the same buffer, so they both have 4 bars looped. However, on this scene here, scene 15, which says CD, but these don't matter for this right now. Well, the sun went down. That was sudden. So right here is going to be a scene that mutes everything except for track 6, which is using that same buffer, which sounds pretty cool. So this is a crazy version of whatever I have recorded into the 4 bars will turn into this. While this is happening, we could bring in a new element here. And now we're in a new part of the song. It was a little bit loud. Now we could record a version of this. Calderwood says, sorry I just joined the stream. Are you using the OT to control stuff on the nerd scenes, sequencers, parameter changes, or is the OT just the clock and FX for the modular? Yes, the OT is just FX and clock for the modular. I am not using the CCs to control the nerd sec. Although that's a really good idea, and I should do that because the Octatrack, if you didn't know, it has a MIDI learn function, so it wouldn't be that hard to map things. I can just send some MIDI over to it and it will just hear it and do its thing. But yes, okay, so we have the 4 bars, and I just recorded a new version with this arpeggiated sound, right? There's no arpeggiator in this system, but it sounds arpeggiated. Now here's that version of it. So, and if you like, you could sit here and just play with this, right? We just go to the slice menu, hit yes, create random locks. Now we have a new version. Now here's another version. And they sound really cool. I have a little bit of reverb because it's 64 slices, and I just have like some like random spots that I picked. This is what's really fun about this setup, is that you really can just mess around. Like none of these steps matter at all during the performance. They mean nothing, and they will always sound good no matter what, as long as you kind of fill it up, right? You don't want to just have like 1 or 2, even though you could if you use like a big reverb tail. It'd probably sound pretty cool. But for the most part, you could just mess with this live. You can literally just resequence your live performance right now. Okay, so we go over. Could throw some more steps in. Maybe remove some. And then we'll go new random locks. We can kind of mess with this. And now if we save our parts, oh yeah, by the way, the reason why you're hearing it's doing that retrig is because I have a very, very slow, as you can see, the depth is 2. And the depth goes all the way to 127. And behind the scenes of the LFO is this. I have a random wave going to the retrigger, and it's set at a one shot. So it's just cycling a random amount once. It's just sending one value. So it either brings it up to like 2 or 3, or it leaves it at 0, because it is bipolar. So if it goes below, which is what I want, so I do get some single shots, but I also get some retriggers. And I have it at just like its minimum depth. And so that's creating this very random, glitchy kind of square pusher, Aphex Twin kind of sound. But we can save our parts, like I was saying. Let's go to our parts, save function plus part, brings you into the parts section here. Function plus slice grid, which is a super convenient way to get to your slice grid. Just function, boop, create a slice grid, cool. So we could create a new slice grid like this. Now we're back at 0 crossings. So if you actually can get in the habit of doing that, go in function, AED 64, if you want to use this kind of style of resampling your live performance and then messing with it, like truly live resampling, live remixing, you do want to do the 0 crossings. You don't have to. You could just set your attack to a little bit, give it like 1 or 2, just to kind of kill that off. When the Octatrack is in charge of samples, it really doesn't have that much of a problem with it because its clock is so steady inside, so it may not be an issue to begin with, but sometimes those 64 steps will sound weird because they won't land on zero crossings naturally. So you can go in there and just kind of redo it, which is, like I said, super fast. Yes, boom, done. Then we hit yes and say create random locks, boom, done. And we're already there, and now we have perfect slices on zero crossings. Even if you could hear it like glitch, it would sound normal for this type of sound. Okay. Okay. Let's bring this down. Now what I have going on is kind of like a lead, this drifty lead coming from the Loquelic Iteratus, which is a Noise Engineer's complex oscillator. That's going into the carbon, and I'm using a wave folder on the carbon along with its overdrive that it has built in. Getting envelopes actually from the nerd sequencer. So cool, so convenient. And those envelopes are going to the VCA here on the performance mixer, and they're going into the FM input on the carbon, which is then getting using the send on the WMD performance mixer to go into the mimeophone, which I have set to flip. So it's doing delays and then reversing those delays, and you can hear it. It sounds really cool. And like, this is kind of why you would get into modular, is to make sound like this. It's difficult to make these sounds in a groove box. Difficult to make them sound good. That random retrick trigger is cool. Yeah, it is. I have a good time with it. So I'm still on like my very first pattern here, and I want to carry on with the track. So we want to get to a place where we're bringing in all of these sounds, right? Not all at the same time. You don't have to do that, of course. This is the Fracture by WMD, which is like one of my favorite modules that they make. So we might bring that in. And when we have a soundscape that's as busy as this one is, using a sidechain pumping is a stellar effect. And I added a little bit of reverb to it in post after the inverted envelope is digging out the frequency. So it kind of fills the space. So check it out. So there's a lot of stuff going on in here. So it works really well. And when it's in this state, you're kind of free to mess around with your synth. No one's gonna hear what you're doing. It's gonna take a little while for that effect to come in because of the sidechain effect. So from here, I'm actually going to record 4 bars of this, and then we're gonna transition over to the 4-bar recording. And then at that point, I'm actually going to move to the next segment on the nerd sequencer. And I will also change the pattern. Okay, this is that recorded version. So here we go. I just changed the pattern over on the nerd sequencer. You can't hear that though, which is good because I carelessly just went over here and like barely even looking at it and did it. So who knows what I could have done, but I know it's gonna work out. And now I can kind of hang out here, or I can mess with this a little bit, or go to this. We can mess with here. Maybe even change it one more time. We'll go to the next pattern. Now we have some different melodies going on. So what I'm always working on while doing this stuff is finding ways to make my performance seem as alive and dynamic as possible, because I'm somebody who gets bored. So I need to be busy, and I want my movements to have an effect that people can notice, right? Kind of like when you slide your hand down the guitar. I mean, you can hear that change. Your finger sliding down like the E string or the high E string, and just like bending a note there, like it's very dramatic. And so I that appeals to me, and I want to do that in my performances. So I'm always looking for ways to make dynamic transitions and dynamic changes that feel the closest to being like I'm in Ableton, right? Or I'm in Bitwig or Logic or whatever. Like that people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. That this is not a pre-recorded performance, but damn, it sure sounds like it is, because there's so much dynamic stuff happening that it seems like you would have to have planned it. Well, if you do, like, you practice and you build some cool effects, you can plan it and make it seem like a pre-recorded session. Not that that's really what you want with hardware. I'm just using that as an example to get my point across, to having it sound like you put a lot of time and energy into it, even though it's really just it's just a sequence. It's not until I start doing stuff like this piece. Stop OT, learn input. Don't know what you're saying there, but yeah, it's heart mimeophone, Calderwood. Completely agree. Okay, I'm gonna continue on. Oh, stop to learn input. Okay, cool. Gotcha. All right, we'll go to this crazy thing here. Yeah, no, this crazy sound's actually coming from the Manus Iteridus. Which is such a cool module. Groove with this sound for a minute. Mess with the hi-hats release time. If you bring your hold all the way down and just play with your release, you can kind of treat your hi-hats as attack decay envelopes here. So a little bit easier to open them and close them this way. Okay. This is a really fun one to do this, to record the 4 bars and then go over to the crazy glitchy side of it, because of this, like, that progression going back and forth. So now we have our snares in. And I actually have the snare not a part of this, like the crazy glitch resample thing, so I can keep that going, that nice hit there. So let's turn it up a little bit. And this would be like the end of the song. I won't get into modular, Now I really want something to like blow this sound up, so I think we'll bring this back in. No, let's stay here. Here we go. I'm out of sounds. So like this low pass would be a really good time to build up to a new sound. So like maybe we'll just open something up here. Oh yeah, here we go. We'll take this all the way up. All right, we're gonna try and have this be like a sound explosion. Some reverb in on this nice analog bass synth. That's a nice groove. Okay, then from here I'm gonna take these drums out. We're gonna really simplify things. Just get a nice little sound here. Okay. Now we're back to a little bit of serenity. We have our parts, so we can actually reload them. So we can kind of mess with this. Like, let's bring this to like, let's change the, no, we don't use user rate. We'll use the pitch. Let's go to half. Let's go an octave down. Just love that you can just make up, once you get to know the machine, you can just make up whatever you want as you go. And we'll reload our part. And since we reloaded our part, those crazy things I just did are changed, and now I can go back to this crazy shit. Super fun. That was pretty cool. It's a lot more fun, like, knowing that there's some people to play music to. You know, I do this by myself a lot, but it's a lot more fulfilling when there's an audience. Woo Wooly. I love whatever you're saying to me. I'm enjoying it. Did you ever have a Mark 1? Is upgrading worth it? Manga Noise is asking, is the upgrade worth it? Yeah, for sure. Balanced outputs. Just the keys like that they have. I mean, the screen's fine on both of them. There's no reason to like. You don't need to get a Mark II. I would get a Mark II because you're in love with the Octatrack and you need another one. You don't have to get a Mark II. I believe that there's a it has more headroom. That's what they said, and I believe that to be true if they're saying that. But also the key combos are way easier. There's a lot more buttons to press on here, and oh my god, I can't imagine not having the combos that I have now and having to like dig through the other ways of getting around. Not fun. Not well. It's super fun. Come on, who am I kidding? I'm just saying it's not as convenient as a Mark II. Yes, and the LEDs. Bubble Dancing. Love that name. Bubble Dancing. By the way, I sell my heat to, I don't know, buy music to buy a Digitac. Oh, don't sell your heat. This is all running into heat. That's happening. That's sitting on the desk. You can see it. Right there. Analog heat. My audio is always going in there. The only thing that's not going in the analog heat right now is the Prophet 5 over here is actually running into an analog drive by Elektron, which are no longer being made. And there was this crazy sell-off of analog drives for $99. That was Elektron selling them for $99. It was insane. It was insane. They're a $300 distortion pedal. Analog distortion, just like the analog heat, similar. With presets, filters on it, but it's mono. $300 even? Cheap. $99? Stupid cheap. I should have gotten 2 of them. I definitely should have gotten 2 of them. I need that heat but less tracks, yeah. So I need to dig more into my nerd sequencer. I'm not going to do that with anybody that's hanging out watching this right now because it's just going to be so tedious and super not fun for probably even for me, just because it's one of those things where you're just putting in the legwork, and which I don't mind doing, but I don't like doing that with people. So I'll just quickly go over what's happening or what modules are in here, and then I'll summarize what we did, and then I will talk about how you can get your hands on this real quick, and then I'll probably be done because I think I covered most of the stuff that I wanted to cover. So in the system right here, we have an IntelliGel 7U 104 HP case that has a 1U strip here where you can buy 1U modules by IntelliGel, and there are lots of other companies making 1U modules for IntelliGel format, which is good and bad, right? Mostly good. And in there I have a sample and hold and a clocking module called the Noise Tools. This is a buffered mult, which you use buffered mults. This is for people who don't know this stuff. Buffered mults are really good to use if you want to keep your voltage clean or like keep it at the right level. This is really good for pitch voltage because it's going to be the correct level, and you can actually use it with audio. So the audio will be replicated perfectly through the mults. And then over here I have a Quadrat, which is an attenuator, attenuverter, and you can kind of use it as a mixer if you want. And then I have this cool 1U strip here by Acid Rain, who I love and are locals here in Seattle. This is another Acid Rain module, and they make this cool little module that you can fit other modules in. They don't actually make the module that's in it. This is an FX aid by Happy Nerding, and it's got like 32 algorithms of amazing effects. Surprisingly good effects in the Happy Nerding FX aid. And over here we just have a regular mult. And then going down from here is an STX mix by Bufacco, and it's a 4-channel stereo mixer. I guess it's kind of a 5-channel stereo mixer. It has these aux inputs right here that you could like, I'm assuming, I actually don't know, but I'm assuming it says aux so that it's at line level instead of Eurorack level. And Eurorack level is like roughly 18 dB higher than line level, so that's good to know. And then to the left here we have the Desmodus Versio, which is a noise engineering reverb module, and they are using the Daisy chip, which you'd find behind it. And you can buy Daisies. We sell them at Patchworks. You can buy them and you can develop your own Eurorack modules. They actually have a Eurorack module that you can buy, and it's really cool. And my friend Nick, who manages Patchworks, is building. Him and his partner from Allotrope are building a module using the Daisy seed or whatever. There's a couple different names, but they're Daisy. Anyway, you can use different languages. You can also use like Pure Data, which is something I have a personal interest in, and you can compile your Pure Data patch to a Daisy patch and create your own Eurorack modules. Rad. Right? We have the SoundHack Mimeophone. Everybody probably already knows what that is. Even if you don't have modular, you've probably seen this module in like everybody's rack. It's real popular. You should run the Q output of the WMD PM into the OT's inputs for even more flexibility. Wow. I thought about that. I actually thought about just using the Q outs in the input as just to get another reverb. But honestly, yeah, no, actually, no, it's a good idea. I like your idea. That's very cool. So to the left here, we have the Carbon WMD filter module. And like I said before, the Loquelic complex oscillator. This is one of these modules. This is a passive quad attenuator. And so it's kind of like the Molt over here. It doesn't have any power to it. You just pop it in. It's pretty small. You can fit it in just about any case. It's actually one of my most used modules. It's not being used in this patch right now, but it ends up in just about every case or every build that I come up with because it fills 4 HP perfectly and requires no power. To the left is the 410, which actually kind of looks like a 10, like attenuator. And these are fader attenuators by WMD, and they actually have a static voltage of 0 to 5 volts. So when you move the fader up, you can send out 5 volts, like I was saying before, which I have routed to a whole bunch of modules, which is a really cool thing to do and very good for performances because you can make a huge change to your music just by moving the fader up 5 volts. To the left of that, we have the miniature synthesizer voice by Doepfer, which sounds great. I do love the way it sounds. I might be taking it out of the rack and putting in a standalone oscillator with a standalone filter, but that would mean it's a whole nother rearranging of everything. Of course I'll end up doing it. And then the Surface by Qubit, which is a physical modeling synthesizer voice, similar to a Plonk, but I would say quite different. The Plonk is actually far more flexible and probably more powerful. However, the Surface, I think, sounds better to my ears, and it does a polyphonic thing of up to 8 voices. So you could have it send 8 different notes, turn the decay up so those notes start layering on top of each other. You can actually build chordal elements that way, which is, I found, a really convenient way to do stuff that feels like chords in Eurorack rather than buying 4 VCOs, 4 filters, 4 VCAs, and then controlling all of that to create chords with your sequencer. It is a very expensive way to make chordal elements. You could just buy a Surface and do it that way. But of course, you're gonna have physical modeling sounds rather than analog voices. The DN makes more sense to me. The digitone makes more sense than what? What do you mean? And then the fracture, which is like this cool sample-based like clap module. Manus iteritatis, which is a version of Bacillus iteritatis that's more still focused at drums, but more focused at synth voices. And then down here, I'm almost done doing this. I just wanted to give a shout out to all these makers because I love all these guys. We have the Nerd Sequencer, which is a tracker, like the Polyend tracker, like the M8, like Fast Tracker, like really what Elektron is. These are This is a tracker. People, I think, maybe that part escapes them because trackers usually are vertically scrolling device, whereas the Octatrack is scrolling from left to right, or any other Elektron gear. And then Pam's Workout, which is in everything. It's a clock. It's an everything module. It's awesome. People have this like they have maths. And Acid Rain Maestro, which is a performative LFO. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. I recommend you look that up. I have a video of it on my channel. This is just a summing mixer. And then the WMD Performance Mixer, which has a bunch of stereo inputs, send and return, and all sorts of great stuff. All these modules I will never get rid of. Pam, yeah, you know it. Okay, so just to sum it up before I let anybody go, or I don't know how many people are hanging out. We're using a stereo output from the WMD Performance Mixer with some sound effects in here. This is all being sequenced inside the Nerd Sequencer. It's coming into the Octatrack on inputs A and B, which is going into a through track here. I have a trig there. Going into a neighbor track where I have these one-shot triggers. These are different than trigless locks. These are this, and you hold it down and hit no, and then it becomes a one-shot trigger. One-shot triggers will trigger envelopes, reset LFOs, and trigger the envelope in your filter. So they're really important, and you use them to design effects that you can use in conjunction with your crossfader. On the next track here, I just have a static track because I don't need it to be anything other than that, and it's just playing kick drums that I have kind of panned around and volumes down a little bit to kind of give it a feeling of some toms. Hi-hats, a snare track. Track 6 is a resample track sharing the audio buffer with track 7. Track 7's the main resample track, only has one trigger on it, has another trigger that's got a one-shot trig, create one-shot trig, so you place a trig down, hold function, and do that. The only way to trigger this without touching it with your finger is to hold the track down that has that one-shot trigger down. This is in the recording trigger menu, which is available when you're in this menu. See this change? These triggers. So to trigger this, you would hit it with your finger, or hit track 7 and hit yes, and it will start recording for you. This pretty music. It's all being funneled into a master track, which is important for designing your own scene effects. I'm gonna go over the scenes real quick because someone asked about it. Too fast. I'm sorry. Please jam us out before ending the stream. I'd like to hear the setup for a bit. I will. That's a great idea. Let me go through these effects really fast so we can just check them out, see if you like them. So the first one is a blank effect. I actually just use it as a 0 so that I can crossfade over to nothing. And then this next one, it says CH, and I actually am using it kind of like a chorus. So I'm using the flanger here quite liberally. And I'm also using this dark reverb. And it's doing some filtering on the drums, but for the most part, you can hear how this effect sounds. It's got a very cool tape warble. And it kind of makes me think of like jogging house kind of tunes. This next one is similar to the Daft Punk effect that I've made, but it's not the same because it can't be. The way that this is set up, you can't design it in the same way. You need more effects to work with. But it's doing the same idea. It's a much cleaner feel. You can hear it's panning from left to right because the delay is set up as a tape delay with ping pong. It's very easy to do. I'm actually using 2 filters to design this. So there's a filter of the incoming audio here. You can see how it's set up. And then there is another filter on the master track. I'm using 2 filters to kind of like create a bandpass kind of feeling to it. This actually sounds great right here. I guess my modular is not in tune with the Prophet. Yep, so we can't play with it. Okay, that was worth a try though. The next effect is the sidechain pumping effect. Nice, glad you can follow. And this effect is using these one-shot triggers on the neighbor track. So it's in post of everything else. It's an inverted LFO. The trigger's 1 time on every 4th beat. And it's actually cutting all the frequencies out with a low-pass filter, just in a nice cut. And then I have just a standard low-pass filter. Sounds good. High pass. Then I have this one that only high passes the incoming audio and leaves the drums alone, and adds a little bit of delay to the incoming audio. It's a nice sound. And that's all the effects that I have. And then lastly, on track 6, once again, I'll tell you what we're doing here. We have all these crazy triggers, and it's just a random version of our live audio. So I will go back to nothing, and I'll jam us out for a bit. Back to the last one. Here we go. All right. Thank you everyone for hanging out on the stream. I'm gonna play some music for you, and then I'm gonna go bye, and then I'm gonna go. But right now I'm gonna play. Thanks, Ray. I'm gonna have to play this in reverse now. Remember, Pure, LaCroix. They should make me a spokesperson for them. I could see it. Alright, here we go. Let's modulate it. Yes, Dixie 2 Plus. It's a good choice. Cool. Thanks for hanging out with me, my Octatrack, and my modular synth. Thanks to WooWooly72 for being so damn chatty. Right on. Happy to have you. Be sure to join the EZBOT Discord to hang out with us and talk about synthesizers and Octatracks and samplers and guitars and gear. And if you want to get your hands on this template or my templates, or feel like supporting an artist such as myself, visit my Patreon at patreon.com/EZBOT. You're wonderful. Thank you everyone for hanging out. I'm gonna let you go do your Friday night thing, and I'm gonna put up soundproofing on my empty walls because my Sweetwater order just came. So thank you all, and many, many blessings.